Welcome to richplanet.net, the program which aims to uncover the truth behind the alien and UFO mystery. I'm Richard D. Hall, and this week's program is about the Illuminati, which is a term commonly used to describe an elite group which are alleged to be controlling the Earth. This control presumably includes access to information relating to the alien and UFO issue. Before we examine some of these secret groups, perhaps I should start by outlining the power structures which most of us believe are in control of the Earth. The first groups one might consider are governments, which could be split into two categories, democratic and non-democratic. Then there are the intergovernmental organizations to which governments sign up to, such as the United Nations, NATO, the World Trade Organization, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and so on. Religions, too, wield great influence and power with their hierarchies spanning the world. And most people on the planet, if not religious themselves, accept their influence. One might also consider organizations like NASA, the CIA, and other intelligence agencies in America as holding power throughout the world. The American intelligence agencies certainly have influence over British intelligence. We then come to the commercial world, which includes large corporations, banks, media organizations, oil companies, etc. It's generally accepted that a democracy is the fairest system of government. But how do we define democracy? And how do we know that there is democracy, bearing in mind the competing influences of the organizations I've just described? There doesn't seem to be a way of measuring how democratic our society is. In an ideal world, our democratically elected governments would make laws that benefit all of humanity. We would all be treated equally, no organizations would keep secrets, our governments would be open and ensure that all organizations act in our best interests. Back to the real world. So who are the Illuminati? Some people believe that the Illuminati, or New World Order as it is sometimes called, covertly control governments and organizations, and by doing so deceive the mass of humanity into believing we live in a democratic world. I recently spoke to David Boyle, and he believes that the three prime instruments used by the Illuminati to control the mass of humanity are finance, the media, and religion. Greater at work, which is the cause of that cover-up?
Without doubt, the cause of the cover-up is by the same groups of people, beings, consciousnesses that have decided that they want to maintain the status quo for the people and the benefit of those that's had the status quo for a long time. And of course, the arrival of ETs would take away the controlling element of religions, because straight away the religious belief systems that control a lot of people's minds, people who have not had the opportunity all the time to sit down and think about things themselves, who have fallen into the trap of being, because your parents took you to church and did these aspects. And we realise today that religion is one of the major contributors to the control of the mind. It actually means today really the restriction of knowledge to the masses. You're no longer allowed to, in religious organisations, to pass from one to another information. Even in a Christian organisation, you go from one type of denomination to another, you'll get bell-booked and candled. And yet they're the same supposed religious beliefs. So you start to look around at the controlling of people. How are people controlled? And the greatest way to control a lot of people by a small group has always been the same: divide and conquer. So get a lot of people to be brought up with one religious belief in one area, and another group in another area to be brought up with a religious belief. It's then very, very easy to create strife and strike between the two. Divide and conquer while you take the power. And that's one of the aspects. And control of religion, of course, is one of the three major aspects of the mental control of all people on the planet.
Okay. I asked Detective Constable and UFO researcher Gary Heseltine to give his view. And a lot of people would say the reason why the secrecy goes on is because there's a much greater power at work. Perhaps some people would call it the Illuminati. That there are elements who have positions of power within banks and media and that kind of thing, who are, I mean, you said that it's difficult to get this subject taken seriously on television and that kind of thing, that the world is somehow not really, the power structures that allege to control the world aren't necessarily, and there's another force at work. What's your take on that?
In the grand scheme of the Illuminati, I don't dwell on, like I said, I don't tend to dwell on things that I'll never be able to prove, because it's just pure speculation. However, I think when you examine the way the UFO subject is treated and has been treated over the last 60 years, since it's sort of the modern era, then you'd have to say that the conclusion is that there is a decision from somebody very high up to have a broad policy of downplaying the subject.
The Illuminati are believed to have their power base contained within certain families or bloodlines. These include the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers, and many other families. Members of the so-called Illuminati are alleged to operate within secret societies. It cannot be disputed that many extremely powerful people throughout the world are members of secret societies, and this is possibly where the real power lies.
Knowledge is power, power is control. If you have that knowledge, you keep it to yourself. That's why we have a plethora of secret societies on this planet.
Could you describe them, David, the secret societies, and you mentioned before the different families that are involved in the Illuminati. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, yes, there's so many different families that's involved in it, and there's so many aspects of it. You basically only need to look around where the maintainers of power and wealth are stuck in the past, where the same people and same families seem to hold the positions of power or the positions of wealth. And you can follow it through very quickly. The Illuminati themselves are groups of systems. I mean, you want to talk about secret societies, Masons, Freemasons, Knights Templars, Rosicrucians, Jesuits, Zionists, Opus Dei, Tavistock Institute, Jason Scholars. There's loads and loads and loads of them. And of course, these people in many cases go through initiation stages where parts of the true workings of the universe are explained to them.
UFO researcher Tim Good isn't so convinced, but he does believe that some people in positions of power are members of secret societies. If I just ask you about the Illuminati, I mean, do you think, because the answers that you've given me so far, you're saying that it's broadly the military that's in control of the information, and it's the military that's in control of the cover-up, shall we say, and whether we're going to all find out about it. Now, what about people who aren't involved in military, but who perhaps have positions of power? Many people believe that the cover-up is being perpetrated by other families, family dynasties who are a part of the Illuminati. What's your view on that?
There's something to it. I think some people, I mean, what do you mean by the Illuminati? I mean, there's
secret societies like
okay.
The Freemasons or...
Masons, I don't know. I very much doubt whether there might, at the very top, you know, if you're 33rd degree or something, have some knowledge about it. But I think it's certainly true that there are some very powerful people who may be associated with Masons, for example, or the Bilderberger groups who are in possession of this knowledge and might not want the mass of humanity to learn about it. That is quite possible.
We then, of course, usually swear gigantically horrendous oaths to maintain that society, which are then pressurised by the people that surround them to make sure that they keep to those levels. So the knowledge is kept in the hands of a few, while the majority of people are just nothing more than slaves, basically.
One of these secret societies, based in America, is called the Skull and Bones Society. It sounds ridiculous, but members have included CEOs of large corporations, CIA chiefs, senators, presidents of banks, secretaries of defense, US ambassadors, professors, chairs of the United Nations, governors, economists and lawyers. Prescott Bush, George Bush Sr.'s father, was a member, along with his son and grandson George W. Bush. During the 2004 American election campaign, Republican and Democrat presidential candidates George W. Bush and John Kerry, who is also a member of Skull and Bones, were asked to talk about this society.
You were both in Skull and Bones, the secret society.
It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for America? The conspiracy theorists are going to go wild.
I'm sure they are. I don't know. I haven't seen the web.
You both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us? Not much, because it's a secret.
Is there a secret handshake? Is there a secret code?
I wish there were something secret I could manifest.
322, a secret number?
There are all kinds of secrets, Tim, but one thing is not a secret. I disagree with this president's direction that he's taking the country weakened.
If the leaders of the two major political parties in America are both following orders from the same secret society, then democracy in that country has disappeared in a puff of smoke. The Skull and Bones Society's headquarters is in a windowless building known as the Tomb at New Haven in Connecticut, next to Yale University. Another American secret society is the Bohemian Club, founded in 1872. This organization has around 2,300 members who meet once a year for a 2-week fire festival at Bohemian Grove in the hills of Northern California. Members include most American presidents, members of the Federal Reserve, prime ministers, and many of the world elite. British notables who are believed to have attended are Prince Philip, Tony Blair, and John Major. The gatherings are highly secret, and Bohemian Grove is difficult to gain access to. But several years ago, radio host Alex Jones gained access and filmed one of the strange rituals in which the world's elite worship a 25-foot stone owl and then perform mock human sacrifices. Former US Secretary of State Henry Kissinger delivers a breakfast lecture every year on topics that have included the Iraq War. Another secret group is the Bilderberg Group. The Bilderberg Conference is an unofficial annual invitation-only conference of around 130 guests, most of whom are persons of influence in the fields of politics, business and banking. The group meets annually at luxury hotels or resorts throughout the world, normally somewhere in Europe, and once every 4 years in the United States or Canada. Some of the attendees include Bill Clinton, Henry Kissinger, Tony Blair, Kenneth Clark, George Osborne, Margaret Thatcher, prime ministers of many countries, EU commissioners, leaders of financial institutions, major corporations, and owners of media organizations. Other groups within which the Illuminati are alleged to operate include organizations which are publicly known about but are possibly not quite what they seem to those on the outside. These include the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, the Royal Institute of International Affairs, the Club of Rome, and even the United Nations. I doubt very much if people join secret organizations to learn about flower arranging. Why should a democratically elected politician or public servant need to be a member of any secret organization? In a famous speech given by President Kennedy in 1961, he said that the very word secrecy is repugnant.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
Another interesting group is or was the PNAC, the Project for the New American Century, described as a think tank to promote American global leadership. This group played a key role in starting the invasion of Iraq, and some say orchestrated the 9/11 attacks to create a new Pearl Harbor. 9/11 was needed so that the US administration could get public support in its military quest for global power. And this is what some believe is the ultimate plan: a third world war with China, which would be resolved by the creation of a single world government. So who or what might be at the top of these powerful elite groups? Many people suggest that an alien force is at the apex of the Illuminati pyramid. Tim Good speaks here about the purpose behind the alien abduction phenomenon.
What I'm told is that it's for their own agenda, which is takeover of this planet. Now that's kind of disturbing, if it's true. I don't know it's true, I'm just saying what I have learnt. And this is obviously very, very disturbing. And apparently the hybridization program, half alien, half human, whatever the proportions are, is to make us acquiescent, less violent. I think I can see very good reasons for that. But at the same time, is it going to make us more acquiescent to what they want to do, which is to take over this planet? They need this planet. I'm sure there are several spacefaring races who need this planet. Earth is unique. Astrophysicists are absolutely right about this. Earth is unique, not obviously in the Milky Way, but for quite a ways around. And I think for donkey's years, it's a very attractive prospect to people looking for alternative planets to have bases on them or whatever.
It's impossible to get a true picture of what is really going on within these Illuminati groups. It seems that power is spread throughout various organizations, and perhaps there are political struggles within these groups that we, the public, know nothing about. During the interview with UFO researcher Tim Good, it became apparent that he believes that the knowledge relating to alien races is held by certain small groups within the US military, and not necessarily by an Illuminati. Many people believe that the cover-up isn't purely perpetrated by the military or perhaps even the Illuminati, that there is a link with aliens who are in control of the disclosure or non-disclosure, shall we say. Do you think that people are receiving, or the power structure at the top of it is some kind of alien force?
I do indeed think that is the case, yes. And there's also corporate interests involved, huge sums, billions of money in the black budget is involved in this subject, and it's all covered under weaponry.
So how would, I mean, this is probably going to be a really difficult question, but how would that communication take place between, would it be in an office, just two people sitting, an alien sitting talking to someone in the UN or something like that? Or?
Well, probably not the United Nations, but certainly there have been meetings in offices, certainly involving the more human type that, you know, pass among us and are spies, if you like. Those meetings have taken place. Other meetings, I'm told, have been take place at the bases.
Okay. And some witnesses...
And that involves both of the basic types of aliens who communicate with us.
Illuminati, is there a direct control over them by extraterrestrials? Until just before 2000, most certainly there was. Okay. The Illuminati means illuminated. That means they understand the light. They have the knowledge. Light is normally wisdom and information, data, put together to give you the true workings of the universe. Those Illuminati members who know the truth.
Do you think that we call it the cover-up, do you think that that's actually perpetrated by an alien force then? Or do you think that's purely human beings?
That's a very good question, but I myself think, well, the two things I'd like to say about that is that, first of all, from what I've gathered, many of the aliens don't want us to know what they are doing here. And that's kind of understandable, and they could take retaliatory action if, say, those few people in the United States government wanted to start talking. And it's quite possible they've done that already. So it's not in their best interests.
You've got to realise that the UFO phenomena is attached to everything else. People say it's separate. It's separate from the understanding of the control of the planet. No, it's not. It's part of what's actually going on. All of the understanding there. We on this planet have lived in a massive total illusion. The illusion of history is a total and utter lie.
President Kennedy gave a speech in 1961 to the American Newspaper Publishers Association. Listening to these words almost 50 years later, it seems everything he warned us about has come true.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. No president should fear public scrutiny of his program, for from that scrutiny comes understanding, and from that understanding comes support or opposition, and both are necessary. I am not asking your newspapers to support an administration, but I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people. For I have complete confidence in the response and dedication of our citizens whenever they are fully informed. I not only could not stifle controversy among your readers, I welcome it. This administration intends to be candid about its errors. For as a wise man once said, an error doesn't become a mistake until you refuse to correct it. We intend to accept full responsibility for our errors, and we expect you to point them out when we miss them. Without debate, without criticism, no administration and no country can succeed, and no republic can survive. That is why the Athenian law...
I think Kennedy was assassinated
Linked to
the fact that he probably wanted to tell the public.
Control the mass of humanity are finance, the media, and religion. Greater at work, which is the cause of that cover-up.
Without doubt, the cause of the cover-up is by the same groups of people, beings, consciousnesses that have decided that they want to maintain the status quo for the people and the benefit of those that's had the status quo for a long time. And of course, the arrival of ETs would take away the controlling element of religions, because straight away the religious belief systems that control a lot of people's minds, people who have not had the opportunity or the time to sit down and think about things themselves, who have fallen into the trap of being, because your parents took you to church and did these aspects. And we realise today that religion is one of the major contributors to the control of the mind. It actually means today, there
doesn't seem to be a way of measuring how democratic our society is. In an ideal world, our democratically elected governments would make laws that benefit all of humanity. We would all be treated equally, no organisations would keep secrets, our governments would be open and ensure that all organisations act in our best interests. Back to the real world. So who are the Illuminati? Some people believe that the Illuminati, or New World Order as it is sometimes called, covertly control governments and organizations, and by doing so deceive the mass of humanity into believing we live in a democratic world. I recently spoke to David Boyle, and he believes that the three prime instruments used by the Illuminati to control Welcome to richplanet.net, the program which aims to uncover the truth behind the alien and UFO mystery. I'm Richard D. Hall, and this week's program is about the Illuminati, which is a term commonly used to describe an elite group which are alleged to be controlling the Earth. This control presumably includes access to information relating to the alien and UFO issue. Before we examine some of these secret groups, perhaps I should start by outlining the power structures which most of us believe are in control of the Earth. The first groups one might consider are governments, which could be split into two categories, democratic and non-democratic. Then there are the intergovernmental organizations to which governments sign up to, such as the United Nations, NATO, the World Trade Organization, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and so on. Religions, too, wield great influence and power with their hierarchies spanning the world. And most people on the planet, if not religious themselves, accept their influence. One might also consider organizations like NASA, the CIA, and other intelligence agencies in America as holding power throughout the world. The American intelligence agencies certainly have influence over British intelligence. We then come to the commercial world, which includes large corporations, banks, media organizations, oil companies, etc. It's generally accepted that a democracy is the fairest system of government. But how do we define democracy? And how do we know that there is democracy, bearing in mind the competing influences of the organizations I've just described?